Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And wow, what a day today was. Community uproar, drama, feedback, disdain, emotions, feeling of almost being let down to an extent. There's a lot. And we're going to talk about a number of things. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because it helps out a lot. So first and foremost, I want to talk about this percentage thing that happened today. We'll talk about migration caps. We'll talk about the activity status change. We're going to talk about a suggestion that already has 1,100 upvotes, and we'll link to that in the pinned comment description. And then also a future suggestion that I'll be submitting, and I'll be sharing some thoughts with you as well. So the first thing is, after the update dropped, there were a number of people, however many it may be, that were posting messages and screenshots on the Discord about being stuck at 39% on their load screen. And there was here we go, from Nick G. This is something that was posted in the Gen chat on the official Discord. Right, for everyone still struggling with 39%, I found out what the problem is. It's to do with if your language uses a comma or a dot as decimal. The easiest way to fix is to go to Control Panel, Clock and Region, change date, time, or number formats, and then put the format on English, United States. You want to make sure that if you go into additional settings, it shows a dot for your decimal symbol and not a comma. And again, I'm sure some people could corroborate that as well. This was something that I saw being posted around. So hopefully that may do you some good or a potential fix if you're still running into that problem. Number 2 is the players getting left out again on their migration journey due to low caps. This is something that, for those of you that remember, back when, I think this was a couple, maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago, where you ended up running into another challenge with migration. It actually might have been 1 or 2 seasons ago now that I recall. It probably was pretty recent. But one of the main stories that came out of that hurdle for migration was Noor and a number of other alliances that were trying to basically kind of refill themselves, and really just predominantly for their main alliance. And when they migrated, they were not able to bring everyone in their single alliance with them to a designated kingdom. Now, some of you might be asking, okay, well, boss, couldn't this just have been a situation where the alliance was trying to go into a kingdom that was already somewhat populated? No, I mean, these guys were going into normal activity status kingdoms, right? Where at that point they should have had 350 slots available, or up to that amount. And so, not to say that maybe every single one fell into that category, but a number of them did. And it is somewhat challenging when you are dependent as an alliance to where you want to lean out. You want to kind of trim some fat. And you believe your only hope for that is to basically keep migrating one season after another to the deadest kingdom that you can find in your KVK group at that time, right? So the one that has the least amount of power as a normal activity status so you can get the most amount of people in. And so this happened, and a bunch of people went into a frenzy. Those of you that remember, they ended up raising the cap a bit at that point, right? So more people could be fit in, not only from that alliance, but from others as well. And then you fast forward to this situation after the update, and it's basically plaguing us again for, again, right, some of the top kingdoms, where even if it's just trying to get all the players in from their single alliance in, there are some challenges that they're running into. And this kind of brings us to the next point, which also factors into why this challenge is occurring, is because the COD team ended up doing at least what at face value appears to be a shadow change. And we'll show you that here, which we kind of briefly showcased just for a moment. But this was a screenshot that was taken from VIP support, where they responded saying, "Sorry for the delay. Due to the opening of the new migration feature, the scope of available migration has been adjusted from within the division to within the same season. And we knew that was going to be coming. There will be a small change in the migration status of each server." This is the new change, apparently. "For example, active is adjusted to crowded, and normal is adjusted to active. The servers that are in the full state will essentially remain unchanged. Migration capacity will not be raised for the time being. However, the migration methods include special migration, which allow players to migrate even when the server is full." So what you have to understand here, let me explain this by going in-game so I can hammer the point home, is that if you, for example, are in B1, let's say, and you're one of these kingdoms here thinking, you maybe have a decent amount of activity. Maybe your kingdom is being sought after to join because you have a lot of cap space. Let me just crank that one out because it's late at night here. You would be going from normal to active status, meaning that you immediately go from 350 open spots to 200 open spots, and you haven't done anything yet. That is what we would basically call a nerf on kingdom capacity, or another adjustment that is lowering it. And why I think this is a challenge, and in my opinion, just the wrong decision, is because, to me, this directly, and keep in mind, I'm saying all of this from a standpoint of this being at face value because we don't know what the specifics are around capacity. We don't really know a lot more of the details and the intricacies that are factored into as far as what all of those, for example, when you're talking about individual player influence and all of that culminating and combining to overall kingdom influence, right? We have criteria, but we've never been given an example where it's, okay, well, here's an example of a kingdom and the amount of players that are there that are active and how many merits they have, what their power is, what their different contribution ratings are, and where they come from, and this equals, etc., and this equals a normal activity status kingdom. And then you give example B, and this equals an active status kingdom. Being able to have those particular sets of data would allow for us to have a better gauge and understanding on how much availability we have in a kingdom, how we can make more availability, and how we can get to a full status, right? How you can fluctuate your activity status, but at the same time, how you are able to be as efficient and effective as possible for whatever stance you want your kingdom to be at. If you want your kingdom to be more fighter prone, well, maybe you need to utilize the details on how kingdom influence is factored so you can lean out. Maybe you're more developmental kingdom based, so you don't really care too much about leaning out, but you also want to be focusing on how can we bring in the most amount of people into our kingdom, regardless of what status we hit, right? So you might have different approaches, even if you might end up at the same end zone or goal line, if you will. And so the challenge here is that we know that if we look at, I'll give you an example here. So if we look at, where's my master stats? We'll look right here. So if you look at our, sorry, you guys get a little preview there, the free to play, but it's not ordered. So let's go to, where is it going? Top Kingdoms. So let's go to Top Kingdoms. So you can see here that on this sheet, right, we have at the top, we have Kingdom 110, 205, right, 156. There's 3 kingdoms that are over 21 billion power right now. The number 25 kingdom, 109, at least again, as of about a week ago, was at 13.8, almost 14 billion. So you get the top 25 kingdoms almost at 14 billion for number 25. The range between them is about 8 billion power between 1 and 25. Now, the idea here is that you want to try and get these numbers as close as possible. And from a developer standpoint, you can make an argument that one of the reasons why they're probably lowering the cap is so they allow for things like natural player drop-off to take its toll on the top end, and that will inherently lower the top end overall power, and then also gives the lower kingdoms a chance to build themselves up. But at the same time, it also kind of, to a degree, incentivizes a lot more condensing, right? When you limit the cap in the way that they're doing, which now we'll have to wait probably another few months until we really see what the after effects are, because a lot of these kingdoms here are going to try and probably stay as strong as they can. They're probably going to try and reduce the amount of player drop off to a point where it may take some time until we really see what the new averages are. And the reason, if we go back to what I was saying before on why this feels like a contradiction to me, is because when you look at the warband system and the fact that they created it to where you can have up to 4 alliances in your warband from your home kingdom, but at the same time they're lowering the power cap, or excuse me, the kingdom capacity cap, to where now, again, it looks like you're going to be able to get less people into your kingdoms and they'll fill up faster through the activity status levels up to full. This, to me, it feels like a contradiction. It was like you initially came out when the game was released, and it was more where they said in at least one statement that they wanted their game to be a more kind of single alliance focused per kingdom. And then they come out with the warband system and the home kingdoms, and now it's more, okay, well, we want kingdoms to be healthy. We want there to be more than one active alliance there because of how the warband system is. You know, you're not going to have one main alliance and then 3 kind of empty farms, right, that aren't really being manned to the fullest capacity and to the highest activity level that they could be. You would rather have 4 active alliances there to take advantage of your up to 4 alliance warband. But then now you get to step 3, or the third iteration, which is now they're lowering the kingdom capacity cap. Again, that's how it looks. So it's like you start off on one end, you go to the opposite end, and now you're right back to where you were, right? Or you're going in that direction, right? You're taking steps back. And so that's what confuses me, is that it very much feels like we're entering this realm again of identity crisis. What is Call of Dragons? What does it want to be? Where does it want to go? Who does it want to be? And that's... it's just sad to see. It's sad, and at the same time, to me at least, and I don't know however many other people feel this way, but it is disappointing, right? I think that's probably the best word to use constructively, because I, for one, love Call of Dragons. I still love playing the game. I still think the game has a lot of potential. But I think it would be a disservice to ignore what is just blatantly right in front of us. And it doesn't mean that we have to be mean or be vindictive or, name call. We can provide criticism and constructive criticism in a professional way, even if we just disagree. And so with that in mind, that gets me to, I think, my next one here. Oh, sorry, no. Well, we may touch on this one in a bit. But the next thing I wanted to touch on here is the suggestion. So I want to show off this suggestion, right? And hang on, where is it? Oh, it's somewhere. 405. Oh gosh, a lot of these. Here we go. So this one by Circer, you can see here has over 1,100 upvotes. Like I said, I'll be linking to this in the pinned comment description down below as well. He says, so I have a suggestion about current migration, open migration. It's been brought up that current migration is limited based on the average collected power from all servers that are up to our current season. Mine, for example, is SOB2, which hurts bigger alliances like TFS, BXS, War, EAS, and TSROE because we are already way above said average. So bringing in new players is either, one, very difficult, or two, nearly impossible because of these caps. So I, for one, and I'm just going to say this for the record, I have not heard of this being a thing. But if I'm trying to pick apart and understand what he's saying here, is that when he says the current migration is limited based on the average collected power from all servers that are up to our current season. When he says up to our current season, that technically, the way that's worded, would mean all kingdoms from seasons before up to the current season. I think probably what Circer may have meant here, if so, and again, can just correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's all the kingdoms that are in SB2. So you would take all the kingdoms that are within their timeline for SB2, right? Which would be SB2 1 through SB2 8, right? So these 8 KVK groups, because they're at the same timeline. Now, maybe he might mean the entire season. However, that just wouldn't make a lot of sense. And I say that because these ones from 9 and above are not on the same timeline, so they're not in the same migration window. Now, of course, with the most recent update, you will be able to migrate to kingdoms that are within the same season, but also you have to keep in mind that are going to be in the same pre-war server time frame, that have the same timeline as well. So it still circles right back around to being 1 through 8. So I think that's probably more so what he means. Then we get... Now, what are my thoughts on that? Well, I've never heard that before. And the way I've always understood migration is that it's all individually based per kingdom based on the player's influence that culminates to the kingdom's influence. And for those of you that are curious on influence, I think we have that. I don't even know where I'm at here. Content here. I think I have it. I think we posted it here in COD chat somewhere. So here it is, right? So here's the influence factors, which is... these are kingdom activity status factors. So there's the influence, which is the player's influence, and that's gauged by power, by current power, your power growth, merits, your hero stars, your awakened heroes, your artifact level, legion counts, which is the amount of troops that you have, and then your war pet skills, right? So those are all the things that they had officially said once upon a time. That factors into your overall kingdom activity status, and these are all the player activity status, so the breakdown that culminates to that. And so, again, I've just always understood it that it was just individually based per kingdom. So, again, maybe there's something out there I haven't seen. And if so, I of course would love to see it. Would this make the password system over migration be obsolete if we are limited to these averages? And I think he's saying this in the sense where it's like, okay, well, if we can't migrate everyone over, then why have a passport system for us to buy if we can't even use them? Which, again, would be a valid point. Also, would it not help newer servers such as BTR EDS, the only two I know personally, but not having those limits, while in the home kingdom system already while hurting the original servers that started the game? So, again, I'd have to go and look at those kingdoms to see what the activity status is, but if this is accurate and they're at an activity status that is not full and they're able to bring more people in, I mean, I have heard some people say that was a bug that was going around, and I think I saw that from COD CS at some point where it stated that there was a number of kingdoms that were affected by this, where if you looked at the division, which is the hourglass, little magnifying glass that you can click on your profile when you're in KVK, and it'll show you the group of kingdoms. And then if you were to go and click on migrate or migration during the end of season timeline, they were saying that it would show differently between the two. And some people took some side-by-side images too as well, where one showed different activity status levels, and the second image showed all those kingdoms being crowded activity status. So hopefully it's something they're working on or have already fixed. Or is this also a money grab where you limit us now separating players from their community, etc., and during home kingdom raise the cap significantly? Because, leaving these players with no other option other than paying the bundle of $385 to get back with their friends. So the thing here is that they've already stated publicly when I interviewed Asya and Leo that they would be raising the cap season to season. They would do it for a couple seasons until eventually it plateaued. So you would assume... Just to be clear, you would assume that with these players going back to their home kingdom for the first time, along with how long they've been playing and how many migration phases they've already had, that their cap would be raised. Instead, they're going the opposite direction and raising the activity status is one whole level, which is basically reducing the overall cap for the kingdoms. So not only does it seem like you didn't do what you said you were going to do, even though they never officially came out and said, oh yeah, we're going to do it in the home kingdom. To me, it just makes sense with how long these kingdoms have already been playing for. Why wouldn't you do it already? Even if it's just one cycle of raising the cap. But instead you go the opposite direction. Like, that is a hard pill to swallow. And I would hope that the developers, the COD team can see that on how that feels like a punch in the face. It feels like a shot to the gut. It's not a good feeling. It almost feels like a betrayal to an extent. We continue. I'm genuinely asking so that leaders such as myself and many others can play accordingly on how to respond to people for open migration and to find solutions on what we can do to keep our communities intact for this current migration we are in. Suggestion: revert these changes by making the server capacity a reasonable amount for paying alliances, and be more transparent about migration by releasing direct capacity info for better planning. So I did check this off. However, I want to make something clear. I don't think that this, to me, is not... See, when I look at suggestions to submit, I think it's very important that suggestions are objective and they are fair and they are inclusive of everyone, not just minority groups or select groups. And this is the only line I would change. Well, there's probably a few things I would edit, but this is probably one of the most important things I would change, which is instead of it saying revert these changes by making the server capacity a reasonable amount for paying alliances, I would say revert these changes by making the server capacity a reasonable amount for all alliances, but more specifically for all kingdoms, right? That's what I would say, not just for paying alliances, because that can probably rub people the wrong way with the way it's worded. It's not really accurate, and it makes it seem as though you're only caring about yourselves and those alliances that spend versus everyone. And clearly, thankfully, this doesn't have a lot of X's, but I can almost imagine how some people reading this, if you take time to really, again, and I don't think Circer meant this. I've had a couple conversations with Circer over my time playing, but just the wording here could have been better, should have been better, right? Overall, at least for that part. And be more transparent about migration, which again, I could not agree more with, by releasing direct capacity information. I mean, this is something that we've been calling for a while. I don't think them releasing the information is going to all of a sudden break the game. I think it's going to allow people to plan better and to prepare better, right? Keep in mind, people are going to try to take advantage of anything. And if they know, compared to not knowing, it actually also allows for them to be more efficient in their kingdom and allow for players to potentially have a little bit better of a playing experience. And that's because if we have all the information, then we can be more upfront with players in the kingdom, therefore setting more realistic expectations, compared to not knowing and then having to go through many trial and error phases where these are things that can cause players grief and stress, and can honestly just cause them to stop playing the game. In a case like this, more information is better than a lack of information. And the one thing I'll say to kind of end this out, because I wasn't expecting for this to be almost 23 minutes, is that we have been calling for so long and so often, and I remember Asya, who made a post, and again, this isn't like on Asya, she's just the one who wrote it, but the COD team promised us that they would be transparent. They promised us that there would not be shadow changes, that they would communicate these things. Sadly, and this is just a fact, that just consistently has not happened. It has now been multiple times where shadow changes have occurred. There's been a consistent lack of transparency since they made that announcement, which you could probably find somewhere here on the announcements if I scroll up high enough. I'm pretty sure it was her who said that, but I'd probably have to go up. No, it wasn't there. When your thoughts, guys, witness full swing. See feedback. Oh yeah, here I think this is it. Initial servers, nope. Concurrent, nope, it's not it. Before previously, we'd like to gather feedback. The aftermath of this season reset, absence of retained initial servers, despite plans. Servers and changes. Nope. Dang it. Maybe it's really far back. Let me see. Appreciate. I'm really curious. Last chance. Our design. Huh. It's somewhere. Maybe it's server news. No. Rough life. Dang. I really thought I would be able to find it, but I know there was something that she posted. Again, maybe I scrolled past it for whatever reason, But there was something that was posted on the Discord in regards to the transparency and making sure that there wouldn't be any more shadow changes without communicating those things ahead of time. And overall, it's just sad that they came out and said this, and it feels, I don't really know how else to say it. It just feels like a lie, right? It feels like they said one thing, they did another thing, they didn't follow through with that. Again, this isn't anything to say that, for me at least, all of a sudden I'm going to stop playing the game. But it is one of those things that I will say is a compounding effect. I think everyone has a tolerance level, and I think that's fair to say. Some people may see something like this and decide, okay, I'm not going to play anymore. It's completely up to every person. Some people will say, you know what? Yeah, this hurts, but there's still enough good things about the game where I want to at least give them another shot or maybe a few more chances. Again, keep in mind, everyone has a tolerance level. And when that tolerance level is met or exceeded, all right, that's where people will make a decision for themselves. And I just hope that the COD team recognizes this and hears the frustration from not only myself, but really from the community. As this is just not the way to go about building a good and healthy relationship with your community. And it's not about listening to everything they say. It is about hearing, it's not about like enacting everything that they ask for, we ask for, etc. But it is about listening and hearing and being able to filter out the things that make sense and that don't make sense. And this is one of those things that just makes a lot of sense. And hopefully I can say that in an objective way. With that in mind, I think that is going to do it. Oh, yes, I will be releasing a suggestion, and I'm going to be doing a video on that hopefully this week, if not by the weekend. So be on the lookout for that. I truly believe it'll be something that can help this kind of a situation as it pertains to migration. But I do believe that the cap needs to be raised. I think the cap is too low at the moment, at least when it comes to kingdom capacity. And if they want to be able to do the warband system justice, you need to allow more, I would say more than two full alliances worth. Now, does that mean we need to have 17 billion alliances in a kingdom? No, I don't think it should go that deep. I don't even think you can migrate 17 billion alliances in rock, unless some things have changed. Then someone is more than welcome to correct me. But I'm sure you get my point, right? That's like migrating 2 mega alliances over to the same kingdom. You have to kind of decide on how you're going to do things, right? It's either going to be, you're going to kind of go a balanced approach, like you see like a kingdom like I am doing. I think it's like IME and IMD, right? They have 2 10.5 billion alliances, or 2 10.5 billion alliances. Or if you do it like the mega alliance structure, where you have, like the Vanguard alliance, and then you have you might have a 15 or 14 billion alliance, and maybe you have a 9 or 8 billion alliance, and then below that maybe it's a 6 or 7 billion alliance, right? So it's kind of staggered. And again, you may do it different ways in your kingdom, but I think you need to allow and have a high enough cap to allow for things like that to happen. And it just really feels right now that, at least for a lot of the kingdoms, keep in mind, it does also depend on how you build it from day one and from square one, or I should say from season one. But I do think the cap needs to be raised. I think they need to revert it to what it was and then raise it a little bit, right? Or at least do that first raising iteration that they said they were going to do out of multiple, right, before it eventually plateaued. It just feels like it's a little bit too low right now. And a big part of this, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, is also due to how kingdoms are populated in the beginning. And I'll probably do another video to talk about that, but it is so much more connected than you may think. And I'll just kind of leave you guys with that. Let me know what you think about anything I talked about. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on how Wednesday, June 19th played out for post-update migration? Would love to hear in your situations. Were you able to get everyone into your kingdom? Are you still missing some people? How has this affected you and your communities? I'd love to hear. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch y'all later.